Hey everyone, welcome back to another reading club right here at Mangastorian. My name is Benny. I call myself the Mangastorian because I read a lot of manga. In this journey, I started reading One Piece for the first time at the beginning of this year. I am now at the ending of the Water 7 arc, going into Eni's lobby. I'm pretty sure I pronounced that right, and if I didn't, I'll fix it for the next video. The point of this series is I'm just going to tell you my opinions reading through the chapters. I don't know the community, I don't watch the movies, I've never seen the anime. My only exposure to One Piece is the manga. Once in a while, I do watch the anime to kind of like see how the reactions are and the fight sequences go after reading it in the manga. For these particular chapters, I watched none of the anime, and we're going to be talking about chapters 350 to 375. So the conclusion to Water 7. Now, I want to specify something. I'm very excited about these chapters. This was awesome. And this is about the fourth or fifth attempt at making this video. I keep going all over the place talking about my favorite parts. Have you ever gone to a movie and you come out of the movie and you and your buddy are just super hyped and you just keep bouncing around to different scenes over and over and over? That's what it's been like me trying to talk about these particular scenes, because this is probably the hypest I've been for anything I've read in One Piece. And I've read 350 chapters before this, and it's all been incredible. And this 25 chapter segment was amazing. So I'm going to apologize now if I end up being all over the place. To try and keep myself on track, I actually pulled up the Wikipedia recap of this arc so that I can kind of see what order it came in. Because when I tried to make this video the other times, I kept jumping around and then going, oh, right, this happened over here. So we're going to fix that. Now, when I left off, it was one chapter before we got to see Frankie's past. And we got to see who Tom was, what the whole situation with the train was. We got to see what's going on with Iceberg and Frankie in the whole 9 yards. And when I first started reading this, I won't lie, I was like, I don't care, because this left you on a cliffhanger where it was like Usopp and Frankie talking about his past. They had like not teamed up, but Frankie kidnapped Usopp to use as a weapon against Luffy and all of them. And then Luffy and all of them were fighting against CP9. The building crumbled on top of Iceberg and Nami and Chopper. And Luffy and Sanji were like kicked to the winds. So in the middle of all of this, they're like, now we're going to tell you Frankie's history. And my gut reaction, I won't lie, my gut reaction was to skip those chapters. But I know, I've learned, I've been reading One Piece a while now. Everything's important. You better read it and just deal with it. Because the last time that I almost skipped over some chapters, I think it was the Giants background story, which was also amazing. So, of course, I need to see what's going on. And I just didn't like the placement. It was just so jarring. I was getting super amped up about CP9. What is Robin doing? What is the goal that she can't accomplish if she stays with the Straw Hats? And then it's like, and now we're going to go back in time. And I was like, oh, you such a tease. If I was reading this as it came out, this would have made me mad. I would have been legitimately mad. But luckily, I'm reading the whole thing, so I just had to get through it and move on to the next story. But I will say the Frankie's past was really good. I really enjoyed his history. I'm going to call the CP9 guy, his name is like Sam Dome, something like that. I'm calling him Band-Aid Head because he shows up in the past and he shows up as a cameo towards the back half of this because we find out that he's on Eni's lobby. So he's just got bandages on his head. I'm just calling him Band-Aid Head. So we discover that Band-Aid Head showed up and that Tom, who's I guess a Neptunia, one of the fish people or whatever, they do a really good close-up of his hand, which shows the webbed and all that stuff. So I was like, okay, I guess we worked with the fish people at some point, because my only current, I think, exposure to the fish people was what happened back at Arabasta. I think it's Arabasta. No, it's Alabasta. And then they're Arlong arc with Nami's story. I was trying to think of the name of it. Why are they both, Alabasta and Arlong? I feel like the names are close. That's not here nor there. Anyway, turns out Tom built the ultimate pirate ship for Gold D. Roger, and they were doing that. And he was going to go to prison. And in exchange, he decided to build the train, the sea train. That is the coolest thing they've invented in One Piece up to this point. That is going to connect all of the islands, and they're going to ignore the compass and all that kind of a problem. So he's going to build the train in exchange for his, I don't remember if it was freedom or not, but it was going to take 10 years, and he was going to be free for 10 years. That was what was going to go on. He makes the train with the help of Frankie, and he makes I guess Cuddy Flan I'm just going to call him Frankie because I think I'm mispronouncing Cuddy Flam, whatever. Anyway, he does it with Frankie and Iceberg. So we get to see their history, how they're all working together, what their personalities are, how the whole thing works. And the train gets made and he's going to connect the town. They're no longer going to be afraid of these tsunamis. They're no longer going to have any issues. They're going to be able to do trades. They're going to be able to go around. It's going to be awesome. But then Band-Aid Head shows up, and Band-Aid Head is basically trying to drag Tom, Frankie, and everyone to Ennie's lobby. They did something. I can't remember exactly what they did. Oh, it was the blueprints. Right. They just wanted the blueprints to the ship. It's always about the blueprints. That's what it was. So they were going to haul off Tom and all of those guys. And because Tom wouldn't give up the blueprints, they were going to haul off Frankie, Tom, and Iceberg. Only for Tom to flip it around and say, I get one pardon. Give me the pardon here so that Frankie and Iceberg aren't being accused. Haul me off for making the Goldie's Rogers ship, the pirate ship. And so we get to see how that works. And Frankie continued to fight against Band-Aid Head, and he got booted off the island and basically destroyed. He specifies it later that his body got destroyed, and he turned it into a cyborg, which, side note, is awesome when you finally get to see his cyborg stuff come out, where he's like turning his hands into all kinds of stuff, and he's got the chains. All of this happens a little bit later in these chapters, but I thought the funniest was his attempt at a centaur, which is backwards. He made the four legs and he just rolled it in the back half. And even the guy's like, that's a backwards centaur. Funny little side note. But anyway, back to Frankie making himself into a cyborg with Iceberg, and we discovered their history. But we also discovered that Iceberg then gave the blueprints to Frankie to hide out because he wanted them off the island, and Frankie didn't leave the island, decided to stay and become the dismantler Frankie. All right, so we get the backstory on Frankie and Usopp and all of them, and Frankie decides he's going to help Usopp. Usopp explains the situation going on with the Straw Hats, how he's disbanded from the group, but he's still a pirate, how he really wants the Going Merry to be better. And I'm not sure if it happened here or if it happened earlier, but I'm going to talk about it now because I don't know where it goes into the discussion. But Frankie explains that, because Usopp tells him something that he hasn't told anybody, that in a foggy night one night, he felt that there was somebody fixing the boat. He heard the banging and he went over to go check it out. And he didn't know who did it, but whoever it was fixed the boat. And I never thought I'd give a crap about a boat. But Frankie explains that what that was is the Going Merry used like some mystical whatever to finally fix the boat so that they can make it to their last destination. Frankie was explaining to Usopp that this boat will not make it, and the boat knew it. And the boat just wanted to get the crew one last voyage. And I was like, I never thought I'd care about a boat. I mean, I know it's got a face on it and it's smiling, but it's still just a boat. But no, the boat has emotions and feelings. And it was only like one chapter where they talked about this, but it's still one of the most prominent things that I remember reading through this being like, the boat was alive for moments just to save the crew. It ties into why Usopp cares and Luffy and all of them care. They all want the Going Merry to make it, but the Going Merry cannot make it. Now, it made me really sad when the CP9 showed up and they were trying to kidnap Frankie and Usopp, and they just knocked the Going Merry into the ocean, destroying it officially. The entire battle between Usopp and Luffy over the boat is over because the boat is destroyed. And I was like, no! Damn it! But this pacing right here is going so quick, you don't even really have time to like realize that the boat is missing. On my first recap when I was talking about this and I didn't have the order in which everything happened, I like skipped it and then I talked about it later, and it's just, this pacing is all over the place right now, but in a good way. In a good way, before you all yell at me in the comments. So anyway, we cut back to Chopper. Chopper got Iceberg out of the wreckage. I don't remember if he got Nami out or she got herself out. Either way, Nami and Chopper and Iceberg are out of the wreckage from the CP9 battle. Luffy and Zoro have been flung to the winds. I'm not sure if it's here they explain it or they show it a couple chapters later, but Luffy's stuck between two buildings because he's made out of rubber and just got wedged in there. And Zoro, this one made no sense to me, but it's for the sake of the manga, is just upside down like an upside down Santa Claus. He's just stuck. He just can't get out of the chimney. Now, I've never climbed upside down into a chimney, so I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt on this particular situation. But I just feel like he could have crawled out backwards. I'm just saying. I feel like he was there for the sake of the plot as opposed to actually being stuck in a chimney. Maybe Zoro wanted a nap. I'm throwing the theory out there. We get back to Nami talking to Iceberg, and she explains what's going on with Robin, and that's when Iceberg explains what's actually going on with Robin. Robin just didn't want the straw. She explained that she can't accomplish her goal if she stays with the Straw Hats. Well, it turns out her goal is for no one in the Straw Hats to get injured. They've threatened her with a buster call. A buster call is basically they just decimate an island or decimate a person or whatever. And if Robin didn't help CP9, they were going to call a buster call down on the Straw Hats. She didn't betray them. She's trying to help them. And that goes back to Luffy giving her the benefit of the doubt no matter, I can't even talk. It goes back to Luffy giving her the benefit of the doubt no matter what. And even I was like, well, she's technically a bad guy. And Zoro said, she's technically a bad guy. We couldn't really trust her this whole time. But no, the whole thing is that she just didn't want the Straw Hats to be injured. Now, it's super touching and super amazing and just brings Nico Robin up from like, she's a cool member of the crew to like, oh, she's awesome. But I have one problem with this, okay? Now, if you don't know who I am and you just happen to stumble across this video, I'm also known as the Mangastorian. I read a lot of comic books. There's one trope that is always causing issues, and that's Batman not telling everyone why he's trying to protect them or what he's doing. That's what it reminded me of. Now, I know Robin's been with CP9. It's hard for her to go ahead and talk to the Straw Hats evenly or fairly or whatever's going on. So when I first discovered this, I just figured CP9 wouldn't let her explain what's going on. That's why she wasn't telling them, because she just couldn't talk about the buster call. But later in these chapters, they specifically reference the buster call and why that's important to Robin. And at no point is it referenced that she couldn't have just told them that this is why she won't go, why she won't come back with the Straw Hats. I don't know if it's just the way the story unfolded. I don't know if I missed a small thing where they said, Robin, you can't tell anyone. But I do feel like some of the conflict right now was drummed up just for the sake of having conflict by having Robin not explain what's going on. Or there's also the flip side. She knows that wouldn't stop Luffy. That would actually drive Luffy to help her more. So she's trying to prevent that, because that is what exactly happens when Nami explains that Luffy's already on Robin's side. Nami explains what's going on with Robin, and Luffy is like super on Robin's side. So I don't know if it was conveniently her not revealing it for the sake of the plot. I don't know if it was her not revealing it so that Luffy wouldn't do what he ends up doing. I don't know if it was just not really thought about until later when they over-reveal what's going on with the buster call. But that was the only thing that stood out to me with that. But I do want to say, the whole reveal was awesome. I loved the way it came out. I loved the way that Iceberg explained it to Nami, Nami's reaction, Chopper and Nami looking for Luffy, explaining it to Luffy and Zoro, who then, Luffy doesn't have the strength to get out of the two houses with the tsunami going on around him. I forgot to mention that. Tsunami's coming in. So the train with CP9, Frankie, and Usopp all leaves because they're trying to get to Ennie's lobby before the tsunami gets here. It's called something else. It's like Aqua Laguna or something like that. It's a tsunami. That's what it boils down to. The tsunami's coming in. The people are trying to hide. Luffy's stuck between two buildings. The tsunami's got a giant wave coming by, and it can't get him out. But when Nami tells him what's going on with Robin, the full story about how she's doing it to save the crew, he musters up the strength to just split two buildings and get out of his little jam. Zoro cuts his way out because he just kind of does that to everything. He does that like 4 more times, cuts them out of like situations. I'll get to each of those as we get there. But they both get out and they all decide they got to chase after Robin. They also discover that Sanji got his way on the train. Now, I have an issue with what Sanji ends up doing compared to Usopp, but we'll get to that when we get to there. The train is going. The train has Frankie and Usopp are captured by CP9. Frankie gets free. Usopp gets free. I think they both get free. Yeah, they drop them with like the Bat crew and Sanji frees them. Something along those lines. But they're all basically Frankie, Usopp, and Sanji are all on the train trying to climb through each of the cars, getting to where Robin is at the front with CP9. They're fighting their way through, and Sanji manages to get to one of those like shell things and calls back to Nami to tell her that he is on the train. That's what he's doing. And so they're making their way through, and we just have a series of fight sequences as Frankie fights somebody, Usopp gets in a battle, Sanji gets in a battle. There's a really good moment with Usopp. I'll get to that in a moment, because before we can get to that stuff, Luffy and Nami end up having to find a way to catch up to the train. The train was the Puffing Tom was the last sea train leaving, but we get a reveal from the weird old lady that was on that like outpost thing who's drinking booze the whole time. There's actually another sea train, the bullet train. They don't use it because they can't stop it. It just moves at a top speed and bullet trains down the tracks. So Luffy, Nami, Paulie, the random guy from the docks, and Zoro, and then Frankie's crew all get on that train and they start blitzing down the tracks trying to catch up to everyone. Now, on the train, Sanji finally runs into Usopp. Sanji hasn't really been a part of Usopp's whole thing, so he kind of gets informed what's going on with Usopp, what's going on with the Going Merry, and how he's not a part of the crew. I know Sanji knows he's not a part of the crew because he was there for the big fight, but Sanji's just been so separated from the Frankie, Usopp, everything that he kind of gets a recap. And then I found this hilarious. Usopp's too prideful to just say, fine, I'll rejoin. Because they explain everything going on with Robin, they explain everything going on with the Going Merry, but Usopp still says, no, I quit the Straw Hats. So he gets a mask, he puts the mask on, and he's now the Sniper King, which in itself is just hilarious that he'll rejoin, but as a different person. But Usopp takes it to one level above that by then insisting that, no, I don't know you, and don't you want to know my backstory? And I just chuckled at that. Because he's like, Sanji right away is like, what are you doing, Usopp? And he's like, no, I'm the Sniper King. Don't you want to know my backstory and how I got on this train? And Sanji's like, no, we have things to do. And they just move forward. I loved that. Because it's so Usopp. Now, this is where I was kind of curious about it. And I don't know what I missed in the first 300 chapters. Sanji's been involved in fights. Sanji's very effective at fights. Sanji uses his legs because he feels using his fists, he needs to save his hands for culinary stuff. Got all that. But Sanji's really good at fights, but Sanji doesn't have any innate ability from what I can tell. Zoro has the swords, and he's got some kind of sword abilities and learns new techniques and does stuff like that. Luffy's got the devil fruit. Nami isn't really a fighter, but when she does, she's got those stabs that do the crazy wind stuff, which she also got an upgraded version of in here. It's not really worth mentioning at this point because she hasn't done anything with them yet, but it is commented as being Usopp's last thing that he did before he left the crew. But Sanji, I don't know why he's so good with the kicks, which didn't really stand out to me as being like special until Usopp's battle against Luffy, in which he stated everyone else is so much better than him. And my assumption at the time was, well, Zoro's good with the swords and Luffy's good with devil fruit. So that makes sense. But no, Sanji's just as good as them. And it didn't dawn on me until we see Sanji decimating car after car after car. I think he goes through like 2 or 3 of them and the guys can't even hit him. And he eventually fights a guy who can make ramen out of his nose. I never thought I'd say that sentence. A guy who can make ramen out of his nose, turn into blades and try to cut you. And he uses his hands and culinary tools for that. So I don't know why he's so good at fighting when we've made it a point that Usopp isn't. Other than maybe he's just really good with his kicks and he's really effective. I never really thought about it until we hit this moment where Usopp's bringing up, I'm not very good. So maybe I missed something. You guys can let me know in the comments. I'll have somebody look at the comments and see if we can find an answer. Or maybe it's just something I overlooked. I mean, inherently Zoro's not like anything special. He's just really good with the sword. So this is anime. This is manga. We can do that, right? He's just really good with the kicks. So anyway, at this point, we have chapter after chapter of Sanji making his way through the train, decimating people, Frankie doing cool robot cyborg stuff, like the thing I talked about earlier, the Centaur reverse situation. Usopp's doing Sniper King things, and he got good. Like that's the funniest part about Sniper King. When he became Sniper King, he got really good with his aiming and everything he's doing. So I really just kind of hope he stays Sniper King, because then he's kind of on the level of Sanji and everyone else. No, he's not like decimating whole cars like Sanji, but at least he's not just the tag-along buddy at that point. Luffy and Zoro are just bullet training down, catching up. Zoro cuts through an entire train of CP, like 6 through 7 guys. He cuts through the captain. I think he attempts to cut through the frog, but the frog ends up joining the frog from the beginning of the entire Water 7 arc. Turns out it's friends with the old lady, and so it joins the battle. So we got Luffy, Nami, Zoro, Paulie, Frankie's crew, and a frog all going to attack Ennie's lobby. But we keep trucking through the train cars. We keep making our way through there. We got Sanji and Frankie making their way up until Usopp finally gets into Robin's car, and he's trying to, which I found hilarious because she just calls him Long Nose. She knows he's Usopp as well, and he's also like, well, we've never met. I'm Sniper King. And I'm like, oh, he's going to keep doing it. This is great. So we go into all of that, and they get to Robin. They do. It's just them and CP9. Sanji, Frankie, and Usopp are there, and CP9. And they're like, come with us, Robin. And they get their hands on Robin, and they haul her off. We find out why she's so against letting the crew save her, because they explain everything. She hears it all. But it turns out that she's the lone survivor of an entire island that was destroyed from a buster call. She's so terrified of the buster call that simply mentioning it's going to bomb her friends, she gives up. She will not fight. It's a petrified, like a PTSD thing, which brought it to a whole nother level because it's like Robin just wants to help her friends, and maybe that's why she didn't tell them, because she can't. She's that terrified of the buster call that she can't do it. And that's where the chapter ended. And I'm like, what the Alabasta was amazing. I loved Vivi. I thought she was great on the crew. I loved Arlong. Arlong really got me like really attached to the whole thing. I loved both those arcs. Skypiea wasn't bad. I enjoyed it, but you guys were not kidding. Water 7 brings us up to a whole new level, and I am so excited for what's going to happen at Eni's Lobby because there's so much going on, from character development, fight sequences, plot points. Everyone's just amped up. Everyone has something going on. Everyone has emotion and feelings, and so much is happening. And I just want to know what's going to happen next, that we had to film this, and I'm not allowed to keep reading until I film these. So I filmed this, and this is it. And if you want to see what's going to happen with Eni's Lobby, then make sure you like and subscribe, because I got to go read it right now, and we're going to bring it out to you next week. Thank you guys so much for your continued support. I don't have an outro. This is where we're sitting right now, and I just want to know what's going to happen. I'll see you next time.